All right, folks, it is time for the big showdown. It is
Yes.
time for us to talk about the second of Esther's banquets.
This was
Before we get there, once again, let's recap what happened last week. What was the big showdown last week? What happened with Mordecai and Haman? Do you all remember?
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Haman thinks it's all about him.
Oh, of course,
He
he's the
needs to be
center of the
honored.
show. But was Haman at the center of the story this time around? What happened with Mordecai?
He was acknowledged and rewarded by the king.
Right. It was remembered that Haman saved the king and was never
Oh,
rewarded.
Mordecai.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mordecai.
Mordecai, sorry. Ooh. Mordecai saved the king and was never rewarded.
Mhm.
Do we remember how that happened?
Well, he's wearing the king's robes and he's
Uh-huh.
riding the king's horse with a royal crown on his head. And he's led through the city so that everybody can see him and acknowledge,
Right.
honor him.
Uh-huh. So Mordecai is going through the city with a kingly procession. Yeah, Clay?
Well, the king couldn't sleep. So
Yeah.
he said, bring me it's like a memory book, bring me my memory book. I'll look through the photos, we'll see what happened. And that's when he finds out that Mordecai had saved his life.
Mhm.
Hmm.
He wasn't aware of it.
Or he wasn't aware that he hadn't acknowledged it.
Well, yeah.
Right. And so the king remembers after a night of insomnia, the court records are read. It is reminded to him that Mordecai saved him. But who thought up the reward of the robe and the horses and the entourage and the kingly procession? Who thought of that as a reward?
Haman.
Haman did.
Haman, because Haman thought he was being rewarded.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And instead, what role does Haman play in Mordecai's reward?
He had to lead them.
He gets hung.
Haman
Well,
is the one
Haman
having
has
to
to
lead the horse
that
around the
has to
city,
lead the
Yeah.
horse
proclaiming
around.
how good Mordecai is. And so, just to get us to where we are today at the beginning of our passage, Haman has to go around the city, debase himself by saying, "Look at what happens when you save the king. Yay, look at Mordecai. Look how great Mordecai is." And then he runs home, hood over his head in shame. And his wife says, "Oh, you went up against a Jewish man, you're gonna lose." And no more did she say that than did the king's eunuchs arrive and hurry Haman away for
Mhm.
the banquet. And so that's where our story picks up today is Haman is embarrassed. Mordecai has been literally elevated amongst the people and celebrated against Haman's desire because Haman has not only put out an edict to kill all Jewish people, but also built a gallows to hang this man. And now he just went around the city having to celebrate him. And now they're at the banquet that Queen Esther has prepared.
I find it interesting that Haman's wife says, if Mordecai is of the Jewish people, you will not overcome him, but will surely fall before him. That, there's a power in the Jewish people.
So just a reminder, we did talk about this a little bit last time. What we know about Mordecai is not Persian. Mordecai is from the Amorites. Amorites?
Yeah.
Which is one of the tribes that is an ancient rival of the Jewish people. He also is of a diaspora people, but they are like lifelong enemies. This is one of those that, like, you want to think of a stereotypical villain, you think of the Amorites. The comparison that I would draw is like in the 90s, if you wanted a villain, you make them Russian. And everyone understands that Russia was the mortal enemy of the Soviets were the enemies of the United States, and it's a shorthand.
You mean Haman was an Amorite?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up my names.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Haman is an Amorite. So it's one of those that they have this ancient rivalry that goes back to the time of Moses.
Right.
Because when the people were leaving Egypt, the Amorites attacked them. And so this ancient rivalry is still kind of remembered, and the wife is basically saying, oh, this guy is of our ancient rivals who bested us. That's not good.
But it didn't bother her when she suggested building the gallows and hanging them.
Yeah, also that. All right, I see, Larry. Yeah.
Yeah, what? Now, Esther's background is what? Is she Syrian?
She's Jewish,
Esther is Jewish.
but she's hidden. They don't know that she's Jewish, although
Yeah.
it seems to be taken for granted in the next chapter.
Well, this chapter that we're studying today, she reveals her identity.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
Okay.
she is Jewish.
Yeah.
She's just not really put it forward that she is. So this is in some ways like, I'm trying to think of a modern day example. I'm going to use the United States because it's silly and not involving global politics. So, when I grew up, the big rivalry everyone paid attention to was KU versus Mizzou. So Kansas University versus the University of Missouri. And I always rooted for Missouri because that's where my family was from, but I got made fun of in Kansas because I was living in Jayhawk territory. But now I live in Michigan, and no one cares about that rivalry. The KU-MU rivalry goes back to the Civil War. Literally, it is a Civil War era rivalry that is now played out in college sports. So it has long-standing history. But the rivalry would be like someone who is a KU fan being in Michigan and the two of us duking it out. That's what we're seeing is two people from an ancient rivalry in a foreign country duking it out for a rivalry that probably the Persians they don't care about it. So does that make sense?
Mhm.
Or the other way you could think about it is if you're on vacation and you're a U of M fan and you come across someone from Ohio State in Florida, you're still going to make a mention of it, right?
Well,
Yeah, Clay.
just going along with that story, I have a very good friend we've talked about it in Leawood near Kansas City, Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
and her sister-in-law's husband played for KU and is the announcer on the radio for them. So when I went to visit a few years ago, I was taken to the campus and into this Hall of Fame inside and they were just so excited to show all of this to me. And of course, this is where basketball originated. So there was the cute little statue of the guy, Naismith or whoever, and I posed with him and stuff. But it was like they were just so excited. But the fact that you brought that up just was like, yeah, I was from Michigan with a totally different rivalry here, being led around that campus and being shown. They were just so excited about their Jayhawks and
Yeah.
so that really puts it into perspective for me, what you just said. Okay.
So this is an ancient rivalry that is now in a different location. So that said, let's actually bring it to the text and talk about what actually is happening. So this banquet is not just like a good night out. It seems like the first one was just kind of like a fancy dinner, but we get the cue in verse 2 on the second day of drinking.
Yeah.
This is like Esther threw a party.
Mhm.
And everyone's inebriated because now we're on day 2 of this frat party, evidently. And the king once again is like, okay, like you got me good and drunk. My love, what do you want? Like this, we're going on day 2 now. What do you want? Tell me what you want up to half of my kingdom. And so before we get to Esther's answer, what do we think of her strategy here? Like now we have like the second banquet. We have like this is evidently very extravagant.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
she has everyone liquored up.
Yeah. She knows how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's strategic.
Mm-hmm.
And her strategy is very good as we go on. She's figured out how to get the best of this.
Mm-hmm. She is also paying attention to the king's interest, I would say, because we've seen him party it up before. And like the whole story started because he was partying and he wanted to parade his beautiful queen around. The second big party we have is when him and Haman are drinking and casting lots for the new year. And so now here's the third party we have where that is now undone. So there's kind of 3 big parties that happen, and the king's just enjoying them all. And so this is when Esther drops the news, and I'm just going to read her words directly as I have it in my scripture. And I want you all to tell me what you think of her response. So she's been very strategic. She's catering to this party king, and she drops this on him. If I have won your favor, O king, if it pleases the king, let my life be given me. That is my petition. And the lives of my people, that is my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, to be annihilated. If we had been sold merely as slaves, men and women, I would have held my peace. But no enemy can compensate for the damages to the king.
She's including herself in the people that are earmarked for.
Yeah.
That's very wise, yes.
Yeah, Clay?
Well, she's also giving conditions that if they were going to be sold as slaves, that would have brought money into the kingdom. So, okay, she would have just not said anything, but the fact that they were all going to be killed, she's speaking up.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be damaging to the king. Like she's appealing to his vanity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the vanity of like, me as your queen is in danger.
Yeah.
Also, this is a terrible idea for economically as well.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If it would be as though somebody said, it's really not a good idea to get rid of all the poor Spaniards. It's a bad idea economically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But no one's paying attention to that.
Yeah, destroying your workforce out of spite is generally not an advisable position to
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to have. Yeah.
It was kind of an interesting argument.
Mm-hmm. So so once again, she's being strategic here. Like the first piece of strategy you already brought up. she is throwing her lot in with the Jewish people. When it sounds very different of like, oh, there's this group of people, like she could have played it safe and just talked about them externally, and we should have mercy on this group of people. They're not actually that bad. But no, she throws her lot in with it and throws her weight behind the Jewish people of like, no, this affects me. You like me, right? This affects me. And then the second strategy is, yeah, she's talking politics. She's not just kind of being like the pretty queen that is like, oh, she's not being a yes man. She's like, I understand economics, and this is a terrible economic decision. Let me advise you. So she's also actually stepping out, technically out of line, and being an economic advisor to the king. So it's a bold move in two ways.
I think it's interesting to look at the position of the king. He's just sort of a non-entity bystander. With the forces that are making the decisions are Haman and Mordecai and Esther. And the king is just there, doing what somebody suggests.
So he didn't notice any of those things. But the other thing is that is that her reveal that she is Jewish? It's kind of indirect, but
It is.
yeah.
So this is why throughout this study, I've kind of paused and said, like, what do we think of the king? What's the king's personality? Kind of drawing out some of these traits is because we have seen him, Larry, as you pointed out, kind of be a passive king. When Queen Vashti said no, he's like, advisors, what should I do? When him and Haman are drinking, Haman's like, hey, I have this idea. And he's like, yeah, just go and do it. Here's my ring. I don't care.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we kind of see him be confronted with a situation, and Esther has a request, but he has to make a decision. And this is the first time he's kind of been confronted directly with a situation that he has to deal with. So how does he deal with it now that he is kind of being presented first and foremost with a conflict where his queen is that he evidently likes is now in danger? What does he do?
Well, he asks who would do this.
Yeah. Who's behind this?
And it turns out it's his chief advisor. Yeah, so yeah, he has to make a decision. He doesn't even have an advisor to turn to.
And he goes out into the garden.
Yeah. The verse 6, Esther said, the foe, the enemy, this wicked Haman. It's literally pointing a finger. It's like, oh, you want to know who the enemy is? It's this guy. The guy we've been drinking with. Yeah, that's the enemy. He's trying to kill me. Which is real, like, once again, Esther has put this position, like arranged this situation. So they've just spent a day and a half drinking with her, the person who is trying to kill her. Is how she's framed this to the king. And this is the king's drinking buddy. This is his top advisor. So yeah, he needs a moment and goes out to the garden. Evidently very angry. If you're in the king's shoes, what do you think would be going through his head at this moment? What is the king thinking about as he kind of just storms out?
The king has always seemed so weak, and so almost, he didn't even, have any idea who it was behind him. There's all this business going on. They're getting ready to kill people and so forth. And the king's just sort of there, not understanding, or at least there's no indication that he even has any idea what's going on. All he asks are questions. Who did this? Who's responsible for the
Oops.
And he certainly hasn't realized what Esther is talking about, which is you want to kill all these people? That's a huge loss to your country. It hurts you as a king. It hurts the country.
Mhm. Yeah, Gary, you were about to say something. I know you've been more on the king side this whole time. Give us a kingly response here.
Okay. Well, I think he was angry for many reasons. His best advisor, the trusted soul, had betrayed him. He had gone along with it. There's some guilt here that he had just trusted him to pull this thing off, try to pull this off. So I think it was a logical and expected thing to just go off and get a moment of peace about what the heck happened here. How did I let this go so far?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of emotions here. Like the guilt of like, oh, I wasn't paying enough attention. There's probably a little bit of embarrassment of realizing that like the king had a part in this, that like the king wanting to party, the king just saying like Haman take care of it, is what like he put his own queen in danger. That doesn't look good. And also the hurt and the betrayal of having someone that you consider close
His
do
best
something
drinking
like
buddy.
this.
His best drinking buddy is behind all this problem.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And all because Mordecai did not bow to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes Mordecai look even better, is like Mordecai saw through Haman's pomp and circumstance. And Mordecai just being a person of integrity brought all of this to light. So with the king kind of like stomping out of the room, needing to take a breath, needing to walk through the pretty gardens, calm himself down before he does something stupid. Then we see Haman kind of falls apart here. Haman is terrified before the king and the queen, and Haman doesn't go to the king. He goes to Esther to beg his life. And we get the image that she's like reclined on like a couch. I envision like a chaise lounge with like a cup of wine in her hand, and he is like on her begging for his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clay?
Well, I think, wasn't it customary to like try to bow down before someone or bow at their feet or whatever to do that? And yet, if he's doing that and she's reclined on a couch and he's bowing at her feet, then the king walks in and thinks he's assaulting her.
Yes.
But in my opinion, he was not. He was just begging,
Yes.
being a
Right.
supplicant and begging for his life, but the king saw it differently. So is that just a device to just move this real quickly to hang him?
Yeah. Clay, you have it spot on. Is like, yeah, he is probably at her feet. That's why I say a chaise lounge. Like at this point in time, chairs where you sit at a 90-degree angle don't really exist in this part of the world. What like is around the table, like you would lean and you would eat, and she evidently has like something that's elevating her off of the floor, which seems to be what's implied. And so yeah, Haman's at her feet. But this is something that I will say that is, I have experienced, I don't know if the other women on this call have experienced, is sometimes men who have inflated egos don't have a good sense of personal space when it comes to women. And it's sometimes like it is weird when like men will touch you when they don't have to. And you're kind of like get your hands off me. Like, what are you doing? And that's kind of what I see in this situation is Haman has lost all sensibility. And even if he's touching the queen, that would still be considered inappropriate. But he's probably doing it out of desperation.
Also, remember, he's been drinking for 2 days.
Yeah, so he's also inebriated.
Yeah.
When I was in college, there was a big controversy about whether it was okay to sit on the grass. And I remember this was the late 50s. So we had to, couldn't go any lower than a 45-degree angle.
So you had to bring something to sit on. You couldn't just be on
Never mind about boys.
The dormitory that Jean stayed in at the U of M was permissible for a boy to sit with one of the residents on a couch.
Right.
As long as he had at least 1 foot on the floor.
We had that also, but they were allowed to visit in the rooms. They had to have 1 foot on the floor.
1 foot on the floor. Yeah.
And people came and checked.
Well, see, these are theoretically to keep college kids from doing shenanigans.
That's correct.
Right.
But
consensual shenanigans are different than like the example that I will give is like sometimes like at grocery stores I've been like pushed to like hands on shoulders and moved aside, and I'm like, why are you touching me? You can move around me, you can say excuse me. Or men holding open the door and touching your upper back, and it's like, there you go, sweetheart. I'm like, don't touch me. Just like that kind of, it's strangers that can be that way sometimes, that I'm like, please don't.
But Haman is pleading with Esther for his life.
He is, yeah.
The king comes in and he is so, I mean, he doesn't even recognize what's going on. He immediately says, oh, look, now he's trying to attack my wife.
See, okay, but let's take some of these examples we're talking about and bring them into an ancient context.
Okay.
Esther lives in the harem, which is the female space away from all men, where only eunuchs and maids are allowed to tend to her. The only person allowed to touch her is the king. It doesn't have to be full-on assault. In this context, it is considered assault if he touches her. So it's like, you touched my property. You tried to kill my property. Now you're even touching her. That in and of itself is inappropriate.
Yeah, but it doesn't say exactly what Haman is doing other than he's pleading for his life.
But it is suspicious enough. So, but let's back up with the question, why is Haman pleading to Esther and not the king?
He knows where the power is.
Power.
Yeah.
King's attention.
Yep. So he evidently has decided the king's enraged enough. The king's also, he's kind of already taken advantage of the king kind of being a pushover. I'm not going to try to calm him down. I'm going to go to the queen, and maybe the queen will be merciful.
Yeah, and this is Esther's banquet. The king and Haman are there is because Esther invited them or probably told them to come.
Yep. So Esther is the power broker here, so he goes to her. And she is evidently like, she doesn't say anything else the rest of this chapter. So evidently he's pleading and she is just sitting there.
Mhm.
The king comes back in and goes, no, you don't get to touch her. You don't get to do anything. You already endangered her. Was that not enough?
Mhm. Mhm.
And at that point, we have Harbona, who is one of the eunuchs that we have seen before, also walks in and goes, what's going on here? Oh, we also get the interesting the comment. Well, the king says first, will he even assault the queen in my presence in my own house? And as the words left his mouth, the mouth of the king, they covered Haman's face.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very interesting turn of phrase.
Mhm.
Like, all of a sudden, Haman realizes that, like,
It's
he messed
over.
up. He messed up even big time, and that's when the eunuch walks in going, hey, what's going on here?
Well, as soon as the eunuch sees that, oh, oops, mute, sees that the face is covered, which means Haman's done for, he just happens to bring up, oh, by the way, the gallows are still there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like this moves really, really quickly through all of this.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, that guy built gallows for the dude you just celebrated.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A little bit
And
of
so?
yeah, the servants just saying, whoa, well, look at this, poetic justice.
Yeah.
Guess what?
And Haman hangs on the gallows he built.
Yeah.
And the anger of the king abated.
Mhm.
That's another,
Mhm.
interesting. Just yeah,
Mhm.
I just as a former English teacher who taught stories, I've just been this has just been great.
Right?
Just reading this and the devices that are used to move this story forward and everything.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting.
So
Right.
is the moral of the story, kill all your enemies and you'll feel better?
Celebrate.
So
Or kill the one who betrayed you
Yeah.
in a way.
Mhm.
so here's the interesting thing. Esther is not the one that decides Haman's fate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
She doesn't ask for this. She, like I said, she's actually quiet through the rest of the chapter. She just presented the information and let the king react the way, and just everything else fell into place.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
If the king hadn't walked in when he did, would Haman have been able to plead enough to spare his life? I mean, yeah, it's just the way it all moves through
mhm,
this.
yeah. So,
Yeah, that was like that was the last nail in his coffin when he walked in and found Haman uh, with Esther or on Esther, whatever.
mhm,
Mhm.
right. He could have been thrown into jail, but this escalated it as like, no, you're not trustworthy anywhere.
Mhm.
But he's also drunk.
King is also drunk, yes.
Chris, just curious, what would Esther have been drinking? What were women, what was there a protocol for women at a banquet? Would she have been not drinking as much just customarily, or would she probably just have been holding back anyway, knowing what could happen with guys drinking a lot? What's the custom for a woman at a banquet?
Good question, huh?
I honestly cannot tell you. I don't know. That's not something I've dove into too much, but here are some of the things that I could tell you. So number one, in this region, sometimes you get wine made from grapes. you're getting farther east, which also means that you have a higher prevalence of date wine made from dates and not grapes. Which is interesting. This one completely tangential, but it is, I think, interesting. In the Quran, there is a prohibition from drinking date wine, but it was because the wine made from dates was the only wine available in the region where Muhammad was teaching. Wine from grapes just didn't exist. And so there would be many types of fermented drinks. I think this is more of a European thing, but at one point in time, beer was considered a feminine drink. Wine was a masculine drink.
Oh,
That switched at some point.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we know for a fact is that the wine that is being drunk in this period of time is not the wine we understand today. We drink a much stronger wine that is much more concentrated. So where, excuse me, the levels of alcohol in the wine would be closer to a modern day beer. And so the other part of it is cleanliness. Is that drinks with alcohol in it are considered safer to drink than straight water. While today we have sanitation and an understanding of what alcohol actually does to people, for them it was a safer option to drink mildly alcoholic drinks because it was sanitary, because the alcohol would kill bacteria. You have less prevalence of things like cholera. And so those are the things that we kind of just know generally speaking. So the likelihood is, yes, Esther is probably drinking something at least mildly alcoholic because that was the safest option to drink anything at all, is to drink something mildly alcoholic. Even the men were probably not drinking, I mean, they probably had like something we would consider today as like hard liquor. They had those as well, but when it says they're drinking wine, don't think a modern bottle of wine. This means the level of buzz is more of like a day drinking, like a consistent day drinking, a brunch with like mimosas level of drinking. Because it's a party, it may be a bit heavier than that. I don't know what women specifically drink because often what we see is women aren't present in these banquets except for entertainment. Especially when we get into like the Gospels, the women are in the kitchen and the men are at the table. And so there's less discussion about it in the history that I've read, where we get this situation where it's very much a co-ed drinking event. I just don't know. So I don't know if that helps the mental image or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Gary?
thinking that probably Esther was not drinking very much because she wanted to be in full command of her own language and
Yeah, remember she was on a mission here for days. So got to give her credit for self-control.
yeah.
yeah, she was really on it, really focused.
So I would think she wouldn't want to have too much alcohol.
Yeah.
Very light drinking.
Yeah.
So one interesting factoid, this is not related to the story of Esther, this is more related to American history, but I do find it interesting. I found this out, or this information comes from a book I listened to a while ago, which is how seeds changed the trajectory of history. And one of the seeds they talk about is the coffee bean, because a coffee bean is, in a sense, a seed. And what they find is that there is a period in time where people's social life switched from being alcohol-based to being based in coffee shops. Because coffee, you boil the water and therefore you sterilize it and you get an influx of caffeine. And what happens soon after is the Protestant Reformation and the beginning of the Enlightenment. And there is no small amount of people thinking that the switch from drinking like lightly alcoholic drinks all day long to drinking coffee helped people not have better cognition and better thoughts that triggered the Enlightenment, the Protestant Reformation and the Enlightenment. It's just like not being buzzed all day. Turns out to be good for you.
Whoa,
So,
that is fascinating.
yeah. So generally speaking, they're like I said, water and alcohol, they had a very different relationship to it in the ancient world. Just because water safety standards are questionable at best.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's interesting because my grandfather had a beer with him probably maybe 12 hours a day. And he was from Germany, and that was just the way. He was always sipping a beer and smoking a cigar.
uh-huh.
And he was a successful chef, so he worked long hours, but that was just his life.
Interesting. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so any other thoughts or questions about this section? We have like 10 minutes remaining, but I know this story is easy to talk about because it is much more story-like. So any other thoughts that we haven't touched upon?
Well, of course, I'm doing this page turning, but what's interesting is that the story's not over. They've only gotten rid of Haman. We have to figure out how to save the Jews. So that's the main thing. They haven't been, she hasn't done that yet.
Right. And
it hasn't happened. Yeah.
This
he
is
doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't have anyone to do. He has to
this is
figure
in
out how
some
to.
ways the climax of dealing with the villain, but the villain has already triggered the bad outcome. The bad outcome still has to be dealt with. And great
Right.
observation.
Yeah. And I didn't notice that until I looked ahead, that they still had a major problem. And I didn't realize also that, well, I shouldn't, spoil the it's hard not to read ahead. Especially when the chapter's only a 5-minute read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for those who haven't read ahead, we still have an edict from the king that says in a certain amount of days it is open season on the Jewish people, and if you kill them, you can take their stuff. Knowing that the king's edicts are irrevocable. You once they're out there, you cannot rescind them. That is a plot device in the story. We don't actually think that this is true. But this is something needed for the story, at least. So what are the solutions? If you're Esther, Haman's been dealt with. Haman is swinging, and now you have to actually work on how do we rectify this situation? What would you all do? What would you suggest to the king as a solution? Because I don't think the king's coming up with many ideas on this one.
Right.
Well, look, I really don't know. I can't remember who suggested it, but they can't revoke the order that's already been. So you have to figure out a way to save the Jews without revoking the order.
Right, exactly. So you can't rescind the order.
Right.
You have to put a new one out there.
Yeah. And the one they came out with.
So what would you do?
Well, I wouldn't do what they did because I'm really opposed to what they but I think it's a trick. It's really hard. And it seems that there are Jews all over the place. I mean, there were a whole bunch. It's a big country, a big country that and it isn't all in one city, or it's just all over the place. So you have to figure out something that would take care of that. So what would you do?
So we're gonna dive into the dynamics next time. Well, I'll pull maps back up so we can remember how big the empire is at this point. But just as like a quick word to that is, while if you read the Bible, like specifically were like passages like Isaiah and Ezra and Nehemiah, it would give you the opinion that all of the Jewish people returned to Israel after the diaspora, and that was that, and there was no more problems, and all the Jews that ever existed were back in the homeland. And this is why the story of Esther is interesting, because we have record here that that was not nearly the case. A group of people returned, and many people just spread out through the world.
And what about the 200 years before? There was a whole bunch of Jews that were taken from the Northern Kingdom.
Yeah.
And yeah,
exactly.
And they never went back.
The northern tribes never had an official return. They continued to spread. And that is why we continue to use the term diaspora. Diaspora meaning they are all spread out, and they never really have gone all back. Like the idea that all the Jews would return to Israel is a fantasy that has never really been possible. And the other thing is, once they kind of adapted their religion to work outside of Israel, outside of Judah, outside of the temple dynamic, once they created that mechanism, there was no need to return for many people, because they developed the way a synagogue works, that you have a central point of teaching. You have rituals to do that don't involve the temple because the temple's gone. How do you do leadership? Well, they've developed new forms of leadership that aren't priests. They developed a mechanism to maintain religion. And so they are given permission to go back, and then the temple is constructed again, and they resurrect the priesthood. But all the mechanisms they developed while in Babylon never go away. And that's why in Jesus's time, Galilee, the politics of Galilee are very different than the politics of Jerusalem, which is why there is a difference in Jesus's teaching and the way he operates in the two spaces. Because within the north, he deals with Pharisees. The Pharisees don't need the temple in the same way.
Do they not? They don't sacrifice.
Because the Pharisees are not priests.
Right.
They are teachers.
Right.
The modern idea today of what a rabbi is an outgrowth of what the Pharisees were. Which is why you will always see me be very cautious around dealing with how we talk about Pharisees, because how we talk about Pharisees directly ties to how the Jewish tradition has been treated through history, and we know that there's a lot of complications here. And so, but even while the second temple was operating and their sacrifices, there is Jewish people all across the Mediterranean. There is Jewish people that evidently make it all the way to India. Like they keep spreading. There is a tribe, I believe, in Ethiopia that is Jewish. Like the Jewish people never go back. And so it becomes this global religion. The other piece of it that's interesting is we see that the Jewish tradition in this period of time, in the second, in the intertemple period and in the second temple period, they're more than happy to accept converts. People, there is a mechanism for people to, like, for evangelism and conversion into the Jewish tradition that kind of goes away after the second temple is destroyed. But there was a mechanism for that because they're all over the place and they're talking about their religion, and some people are like, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Can I join? And they say, hell yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Well, Sammy Davis Jr. did.
So, like, this is one of the reasons why I think Esther is just really interesting, is it gives us a look into Judaism after it, like in the Second Temple period of, but like a diaspora community. How are they relating to each other? How are they relating to the world? Esther has no interest in going back. She could have hired someone and ran all the way back to Jerusalem. She doesn't.
Why do you think she doesn't? I mean, why wouldn't she think about doing that and try to do that?
I'm going to throw that back to you all. Why would Esther not think to go to Jerusalem, to go to the Jewish homeland, to save herself and flee? Why not?
All her friends are, her people are in, I don't even know what the country is, but wherever they are, their friends are there. Her people are there. Mordecai is there.
Yeah. She has everyone she's ever known is around her.
Mm-hmm. And she's a woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Women don't.
Judah and Israel are also still under Persian control. So theoretically, they got the edict as well. Like,
oh, okay.
They are a vassal nation at this point. They get to exist, but Persia is still in control of that area. So, in a way, her staying where she is saves the Jewish people in the Jewish homeland.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of it is, I mean, thinking about this, like, just logically, is in this period in time, talking about a country or a place, a land, a dot on the map that is months away of travel by foot, it's an imaginary land at that point. She doesn't have pictures, she may have stories, but it would be a dangerous trip for her anyways, because that length of travel is not safe. And it's kind of a fairy tale. So why go to a fairy tale land when it's even there's not even it's not even gonna save her? So, yeah, interesting thoughts. All right, folks, though, we are at 11 o'clock. Any final thoughts for today? Anything else? All right. We have 2 weeks left. We have next week where we hear the solution to the problem, and then the falling action in chapters 9 and 10. Chapter 10 is like a paragraph, so we'll do 9 and 10 together. And then we'll be through the book of Esther. It's been fun, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
So much better than this king did this and we don't like him because he was a bad king. Oh, anyways, shall we pray?
Yes.
Gracious and loving God, When it comes to our world, we know that there are many people who have plots and are plotting, those that are involved in scandals and trying to wield power through backdoor means. We know that people's lives are often at risk when these things happen, and we ask that the truth come to light in all of these situations. Like Esther was able to reveal the truth of Haman's evil deeds, we ask that the deeds of the evildoers of our time come to light, and that we may respond accordingly to the evil that is perpetrated in our world today. May we be bold truth speakers, holding those who have done harm to accountability. But help us to understand mercy at the same time. For God, you are the true judge of justice. Just help us to follow your will and your way in our world. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.